Hey, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. I am Ron Luce, joined by just myself. We're here, unfortunately, to talk about a just heartbreaking Cubs loss, if we're being entirely honest right now. Cubs lose to the St. Louis Cardinals in extra innings by a final score of 3-2. And you know what? What just makes it awful about the whole thing is that the Cubs could have won this game. Let's be completely honest. The Cubs could have won this game. They should have won this game. They had every opportunity to win this game, and they didn't win this game. And I think that's what makes it so upsetting is because after riding the high of last night, right? Beautiful walk-off win. You come back from 5 runs down to take the lead. You get a huge W only to do this tonight. And it was so depressing because games from guys like Kyle Hendricks. Great game. 6 1/3, sure. Say what you want to say. Oh, he didn't have it late in the game. Let's be honest with ourselves. If the Cubs had 9, 10, not even 9 and 10, that's just getting ridiculous. But 3 and 4 runs in this game, if they had 3 and 4 runs in this game, we are talking about a completely different ballgame because Kyle Hendricks is in there. He gives up 1 run. You're like, oh, it's okay. Not a big deal, right? Not a big deal. And then, of course, and a great game spoiled by Ortega. I think that was what I'm honestly a little heartbroken for Rafael Ortega. He had a great game in the leadoff spot tonight. Looked really, really good, really solid. Again, just continuing to put good at bats together for this Cubs team. And yet, I don't know. It is really disappointing when shit like this happens, if we're being entirely honest. But first, I'm going to turn to the comments here a little bit because I appreciate everybody joining me. Again, I'm by myself. I'm literally talking to myself into a microphone for probably the next 25 to 30 minutes at least. So, everybody that is joining, I can see the numbers. Thank you for joining. I truly do appreciate it. We're going to jump to some comments here. R. Caldy 1908. What the hell was Rossi and Rizzo Rizzo's head tonight? Yeah, you know what? I think a lot of people's heads were in kind of terrible places, if we're being entirely honest here, because like it's just one of those things where Rizzo wasn't running the bases great in that in the extra inning. It's just again, it's one of those games where you look back on it and you go, "Holy shit, this Cubs team should have won." They really should have. They should have won this game because they had every opportunity to do so, and Dope Red Beer coming through again with the comments. 0 for 12 didn't help. Yes, 0 for 12 with runners in scoring position. And R. Caldy also said that here tonight. When you go 0 for 12 with runners in scoring position, I don't care how good of a team or bad of a team you are, you're not going to win the ball game. Like you need to capitalize on men in scoring position, and unfortunately tonight that didn't happen. The Cubs lose because of it. And it's just heartbreaking again because of last night's win. Like last night's win, we're all up. We're all uppity. We're excited. It's a 7-6 win. You come back in the ninth inning. Everything's all good and dandy. And then this happens. And this is exactly what happens. And it's just like, again, I feel like every Cubs fan has said this at least once. Let's be honest with ourselves. We all have at least once, just once that just get us to the deadline at this point because it's like this Cubs team doesn't even know what it wants to be. And I think that's the worst part about it, right? Because like they'll show flashes. This team can be good. This team does good things. And then all of a sudden they shit the bed. And then you go, what is going on? Like what is going on with this team? Because tonight's a perfect example. Let's talk through the stat line. And forgive me for my eyes looking like they're wandering because I'm reading a stat sheet here. 2 hits out of Ortega tonight and an RBI for him. Wilson Contreras has a hit. Baez got a hit. Hayward was 2 for 4. When was the last time we said that? Hayward was 2 for fucking 4. Nico 1-3 run score. Like, good things were happening. Sogard coming in huge in the pinch hitting situation, which I thought was hilarious. And this is not a bash at Cubs fans by any means, but just like the amount of like awful tweets I saw when they were like, Sogard's up to bat right now. And then he does what he does. I got a little giggle out of it. not like a shot at anybody by any means, but it was just one of those funny things of like, because I agreed. I was in the same position, right? I was sitting there and I'm like, why the hell is Shogard up to bat right now? And then he does what he does, and he gets the the RBI double, and that ties the game and sends it ultimately into extras. Even though with bases loaded, they should have fucking done something, but hysterical nonetheless. But just again, just a crazy game. And again, I feel terrible for Kyle Hendricks if we're being entirely honest here, because if you would have told me at the beginning of the day, hey, Kyle Hendricks is going to go 6 1/3, he'll give up 8 hits, 2 runs, not walk a single human being, and strike out 3, I'd be like, yeah, the Cubs should win that game. They really should. The Cubs should win that game, and they didn't. And at one point, it didn't even look like they were even going to be able to win it in a normal game, let alone force it to extra innings because they had to come from behind. Like, I don't know what. Again, Wainwright is not some genius. I know everybody's, oh, Wainwright's been really good against the Cubs. He has, and it makes no freaking sense whatsoever because the dude is like 40 years old, and I get it. If you're a good pitcher, you can figure it out. But still, like the last pitcher I remember that pitched into their 40s is Jamie Moyer. So like Wainwright doing what he's doing. I know he's only in his late 30s, but still, I mean, 7 innings from him, 6 hits, 1 run ball. Again, he didn't walk anybody either. There was a grand total of 4 walks in this entire game, and he struck out 5. And it's just like this was the pitcher's duel. This is the pitcher's duel that Cody and I talked about on last night's Cubs on Tap. We knew it was going to happen because it's either a score fest where it's 9-8, or it's a pitcher's duel where it's 2-1, 3-2, something like that. And that's exactly what tonight was. But it's just one of those situations where after the game and the way it went, you're just absolutely heartbroken based on how things went. And first off, thank you for everybody that has jumped in the comments. I know I'm like, oh, I'm by myself. Join me. Y'all joined, and I appreciate the hell out of every single one of you that has commented tonight. My buddy Bears Fanatic. Oh, what's up, Juan? How you doing, buddy? I don't know if you're still in the stream, but I saw you jumping earlier. Thanks, buddy. It's good to see you. Dope Redbeard, my boy Joey Ricotta, everybody else that's in the stream tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm sifting through the comments here as we're speaking. Yeah, and you know what? Unfortunately, we gotta address the elephant in the room. Anthony Rizzo was 0 for 5 with 8 men left on base. And I feel like this perfectly kind of addresses where the team is right now. And bear with me. Why am I whispering? Am I whispering? I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be loud. It's 11:45 in my house. I'm trying not to wake the people up that are sleeping. But like Anthony Rizzo going 0 for 5 with 8 dudes left on base. 8 dudes. 8 people left on base. That is unacceptable. And I love Anthony Rizzo. I will forever love Anthony Rizzo, no matter where he is, what he does, whatever. Anthony Rizzo is that dude. I've always loved Anthony Rizzo. He was like the first jersey I bought of like the new era Cubs. And it's just like you need a guy like Anthony Rizzo to come in, at least clutch at least once in one of these situations. Oh for 5? Like if you gave me 1 for 5, I would be pretty happy about that. You know what I mean? Like 1 for 5 is a beautiful thing, but unfortunately, 0 for 5 just doesn't get it done. And again, especially with how this situation is with this Cubs team right now, right? It's not like this is the 18 Cubs where it's like, darn, really went 0 5. I be back tomorrow. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be dandy. No, we can't say that anymore because every single one of these guys is fighting for a job. Like Chris Bryant's probably going to be dealt in the next 8 days. Javier Baez, there's no guarantee he gets a contract extension. And honestly, at this point, Anthony Rizzo isn't guaranteed anything either. You have 3 major pieces of this organization that are due for contracts, one of which is more or less for sure being traded, and 2 of which that could easily be traded if a team gave the right offer. And yet they'll come and does this over 8 times. If he goes 1 for 5, hell, when the bases are loaded there in the ninth, he goes 1 for 5. The Cubs win this game. Let's just call it spade to spade. The Cubs probably win this game. And unfortunately, tonight they didn't. And you know what? Arcaldi, 1908. I love your comment here. The offense tonight summed up the last 4 years. Unfortunately, that's kind of true. The offense has been inconsistent for 4 years, and that's exactly where we are right now. And as a fan, it's very frustrating. It really is. It's super frustrating. I don't even want to say it's humbling because it's really not. It's like with the amount of just talent on this roster, how do you sit here and just say, "Hey, yeah, yeah, this is the offense"? No, hell no. Actually, you know what? Pardon my French, but fuck no. Like, you want these guys to be able to come through in the clutch. And we've seen Anthony Rizzo come through in the clutch. We've seen Chris Bryant come through in the clutch. Obviously, he didn't play tonight, so I'm not bashing Chris. I love Chris. And I love all these guys. And that's the problem, right? It's but it's just one of those situations where, like, come on, guys. We want more out of you. We need more out of you. And the inconsistency is unfortunately what has killed this team because the 11-game win streak was a lot of that was inconsistent offense. Obviously, there was more that went into it. The pitching was garbage. A lot of things happened in that 11-game win streak, and I'm so thankful that that's over. But it's just one of those things where you sit back and you think about it and you say, where would this team be if that 11-game losing streak doesn't happen? I could tell you exactly where it is. They're probably talking about buying at the deadline. Even if you go 500 in that streak, because you're probably, even with how hot the Brewers got, you're probably only a couple games back of the Brewers. All of a sudden, you're like, yeah, we'll still buy. Maybe we won't go crazy. We're not going to like sell everybody. Maybe you still trade Kimbrel. But then you're like, okay, well, maybe we buy another piece and then we go for it. No. Now we sit here. Now we think about it. Now we just, now we just see where this team is at. And it's just like, it hurts. It sucks. It's heartbreaking because, again, like, I feel like here at Cubs on Tap, we're just broken records at this point in the season until the trade deadline, unfortunately, or until something major happens that we can talk about. But, like, none of us wanted the core to end this way. Like, you think about that team that won the World Series, that was a part of the golden era of Cubs baseball. I know people might be like, oh, well, this isn't the golden era. And I would sit back and I'd be like, wait. How do you say that's not the golden era? If you look at the rest of this Cubs history as a franchise, this team has never made the playoffs as often as they did in a 6-year span as they have in this last, 2015 to 2021 window. But that being said, can we really sit here and be like, this is how it ends? With a sell off at the deadline and an uncertainty heading into August in 2021? And sure, you know what? There's a lot of things to be excited about this team for the future. Brennan Davis, 2 runs, absolutely raking double A. And the collective of that say that double A is a big test for most minor league bats or pitchers. Like double A is usually that level where like you start to encounter MLB level talent. Triple A is kind of those guys that are sitting on the cusp, and then obviously the major leagues. He is raking double A. Great to see. There's something to look forward to the future. But none of us want to sit here and just say, like, this is how this ends, right? None of us do. I mean, let's be honest. Like, you would at least want a playoff run, right? Like, at least at minimum, that would be how you want to see this team end. And unfortunately, that's just not the case. It's going to happen in the sell off. This team probably doesn't make the playoffs. And it's just tonight is one of those games. And I want to tie it back into just what everybody's been saying in the comments. And again, thank you so much. If you're listening as a podcast, if you did join the live stream tonight, thank you so much for doing so. We got up to like 22 people in this thing at one point, and I'm mind blown that we did because it's super late. A lot of people got to work in the morning, but thank you so much because a lot of really good points of just like stupid things is what ended up meaning the Cubs lost this game, right? Terrible base running. terrible maybe decision making. A lot of things that just like you correct the little things and all of a sudden this is a win or it should have been a win, right? And that's what's heartbreaking about tonight's loss because again, tying it all the way back into what I said at the start of the episode. You ride high into tonight's game with a big, big come from behind win last night. Cody and I were vibing on last night's episode. We were ready to be yelling and screaming and negative and shit. And then like they win and we're like, "Whew, okay, this is not this is actually nice." And then they follow up tonight with this, and it's just like I don't know. It's tough, and I don't even know what else to say about it. And this is where I'm going to turn to the comments, and this is where I thank everybody that has commented because I've seen some comments come through here um, that I would like to say. Um, Bajama, what's up, man? How are you? Yes, and get beat by the Marlins and Mets again. You know what? That Marlins loss from last year still stings. It really does because it's just like this son of a bitch franchise that like doesn't even care about winning. They never really have. They've just gotten lucky a couple times and won the World Series or like done something in the playoffs. It just pisses me off so much. But we have a serious question. Literally starts serious question. Thank you. R called in 1908. Who on this team are you honestly paying 100 or 200 million? So this is a bit of a loaded question because again, 100 to 200 million is a lot of money. I would honestly pay Rizzo 100 million. And before everybody jumps down my throat, obviously tonight was a bad loss, but everybody has a bad game. Overall, I think Rizzo's absolutely at least worth 100 million. Do I think he's worth 200 million? No. And I'm going to take the approach of we're paying him for what we're going to get while still trying to find that middle ground of saying, "Hey, thanks for what you've done." To me, like 100 to 135 million is probably fair for Rizzo, and it depends on the contract length. I think 5 years is perfect. You could give him an option for a sixth. Again, there's wiggle room. You can get around it, and even with like Baez. So the $200 million man, I know that was a hot topic when he had the bad game the other night. I can't even justify giving Javi Baez 200 million right now because here's the problem. It's not even the thing of like, is Javi Baez worth or not worth 200 million? Maybe if he's the headline shortstop in a free agent class, yeah, maybe he is worth $200 million. But you got Carlos Correa, Trevor Story. There's a couple other names out there. Corey Seager. You have a lot of really good shortstops in this free agent class that unfortunately are probably going to command more money than Javi because they're higher contact bats and put up pretty similar power numbers to a guy like Javier Baez. Sure, maybe none of them have a gold glove like Javi does, but at the same time, they're all at least competent defensive shortstops to where you say, okay, well, we get the higher contact, maybe we get a little less defense. Yeah, we're okay with that. And so that's the thing that people need to consider is like, and especially, and even Javi needs to consider if you are asking for $200 million, that means you are setting the market, assuming guys like Correa and maybe Seager get like 300 and Story maybe gets like 220. That's a lot of money just at the shortstop position alone. Like that doesn't even include all the other free agents that can be paid in this free agent, off season. And that's a thing that like it's great to want 200 million. And again, I am never going to bash a baseball player or an athlete in general for trying to take 100% advantage of them and their talents because hey, you go for it, man. If a team's willing to pay you that kind of money, fuck yeah, you take it. That's generational wealth. Like from a human standpoint, like you take that money, you go for it. But if we're talking business mindset here, which I was an accounting major, so I love talking numbers and business. You got to look at it from that standpoint. And for me, Javier Baez is the fourth best shortstop that's on this market this year. And I love Javi. I will love Javi till the day I die. And again, it's one of those things where you can separate loving a player but trying to be realistic all at the same time. And like, and this is a fair question, Arcaldi. I'm going to jump back in and we'll talk about this. You don't understand the story hype hitting 240 and 11 home runs. I think he's having a rough year, admittedly. I think he's a very good player. He's a higher contact guy than a guy like Javi. And sure, their averages right now are very similar. Um, but I think he's still going to get paid. I think he'll be closer money wise, though, to a guy like Javier Baez than Corey Seager or Carlos Correa. Like Carlos Correa and Corey Seager to me are like the two top guys in this market for shortstops because, Seager's a left handed bat. He's got plenty of experience playing in a huge market. Like he's done a lot. That's a guy that's going to command a lot of money. Correa is probably the top target just from the standpoint of all the tools. I kind of tuned into some of the White Sox Astros games when they were on and was waiting for the Cubs to start in Arizona. And like Correa was throwing bullets from shortstop and like looked good. Again, looked really good defensively at shortstop. Obviously, offensively, that series he didn't do much, but it's one of those things of like he's probably going to command the most money in the market. And again, any year that you're a free agent and you got to compete with other free agents, it's tough. You got to find a situation that works for you. I honestly could see Javi coming back for $140 million over 6 years with the Cubs. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all because, the market's not going to be great. I don't think a ton of teams truly need shortstops. Sure, maybe the Rockies need shortstops, but I'm pretty sure they're pretty loaded in terms of organizational depth at shortstop. I think they've drafted quite a few shortstops over the last few years. I don't know what the hell the Astros are going to do, but I'm sure they're going to figure something out. And then the Dodgers are just loaded in talent because that's all they do. That's all they know how to do is load in talent. When Andrew Friedman went to the Dodgers, it was like giving the guy that was really good at playing Monopoly with like no money tons of money and then saying like, hey, go play Monopoly. Yeah, of course you're going to dominate the board. And that's what he's done out in LA. He's just drafted unbelievable talent. And then he's like, we really like this talent. We're going to pay this guy a lot of money. Mookie Betts is a perfect example of that. Like they're fine. They're going to be fine even without Corey Seager. So realistically, like Javier Baez might not have a huge market. And it's not a shot at him. It's just a shot of the circumstance of a lot of these teams in this offseason. So, who knows what kind of money he gets? Who knows what any kind of money these shortstops get? It's going to be an interesting market here. It really is, especially coming off of a half pandemic season, I guess, for lack of a better term, in 2021, where there's a lot of stadiums that didn't have full capacity until well into May, some into maybe even June. Like, you know, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. So there's a lot of what ifs. There's a lot of, again, this team, and I always feel bad because I feel like every one of our Cubs on Tap episodes starts talking about the game, but then immediately goes to the trade deadline talk. And not to say like that's not relevant, but when you're sitting here as a Cubs fan and you're just like, I just want to talk about a win because at least if we're talking about a win, we're not talking about the trade deadline. Or if we do touch on it, we're like, hey, it's going to happen. We're not worried about it right now. We're going to enjoy this win. But it's when they lose, right? That's when it kills because then all of a sudden the negativity kicks in. And then we're like, son of a bitch. All right, well, let's talk about the inevitable because it's going to happen. Craig Kimbrell, good is gone. Chris Bryant, good is gone. Rizzo and Baez could be good as gone. There's no guarantee. I think they both stick around, but that's just based on reports that I've read. I shouldn't even say heard. I make it sound like I'm some insider or something, but just read. I've read. I can read. I like Twitter. I'm on it probably 4 hours a day if we're being honest. But it's just like, it's just disappointing because again, none of us wanted to see the Cubs run end like this. Stupid losses, bad base running, little things that a couple of years ago they could have gotten away with because they had the talent to do it, to the point now where like they aren't as talented. So now it's really glaring, and that's what hurts. And that's what makes this just an absolute freaking gong show. And it's unfortunate. Again, you lose 3-2 in extras to the Cardinals tonight. You had this game in hand. You got good games out of guys like Rafael Ortega and Jason Hayward and Nico Horner, guys that like usually if they're stepping up and contributing, like you're in good hands. Hendricks had a great game. Unfortunately for Chafin, a little bit of a bad night, but Tapera was great. Thompson was decent. You know, can't even blame the game on Kimbrel, but it stands where it stands, and we are where we are. And I promised I would keep this to 25 to 30 minutes, especially being by myself. We just passed the 25-minute mark. So it's one of those things where like you would have liked to win tonight. This was a winnable game. If we're boil it down to a simple explanation, this was a very winnable game for the Cubs, and they didn't take advantage of it. And it's unfortunate. And you hope for a split tomorrow because if you lose 3-4 to the Cardinals, especially with the trade deadline looming, like that just amps up the headlines. It amps up the negativity. It amps up this market just ready for the sell-off. And I think we're all mentally ready for the sell-off. We've been teased with it since the losing streak. But it's just like it's almost to the point where it's just like rip the freaking band-aid off. Let's keep it moving. Let's readjust our mindset for the rest of 2021 and then get ready for 2022 because again, this team could say they want to retool and truly rebuild and just use it as an excuse, take a playbook out, a piece of the playbook out of the Blackhawks playbook. But I really don't think the Cubs can afford to do that because they know that hey, these fans are now spoiled. They've gotten to experience winning on a consistent basis. And if the winning goes away, I think it's to a point now where hey, fans got their World Series. They're gonna leave. Not totally leave. Like they'll still root for the Cubs and watch the team, but like there will be a lot more empty seats at Wrigley Field than there ever has historically been. And I think the front office knows that. I think the fan base knows that. I think a lot of people know that. So they can't just sit on their hands and not spend money this offseason. And so that's what gives me a little bit of faith going into 2022 of like, hey, this team should at least be somewhat competitive. Sure, maybe they don't win the World Series in 2022, but at least they should be good to the point where then like 2023, 2024, 2025 is probably that next contention window for this team. But holy shit, like something needs to happen because like if we just sit in the sense of mediocrity for 5 years, I'm just gonna be upset all the time. And let's be honest, nobody wants that. So 3-2 loss to the Cardinals tonight. I'm gonna put it behind me. I hope the Cubs put it behind them and they get the split tomorrow because you go into the weekend at home against the Diamondbacks, who are absolutely dog shit. And it's just like, get a win. You know what I mean? Win that series. Again, the sell-off's inevitable, but at least just win ball games and try to win ball games because at least that makes it more bearable on the fans and even on themselves. I was just like where the rest of the season is going to go. So I'm going to quench my palate really quick, and then we're going to talk about tomorrow's game, Thursday's game. The series finale. We'll talk about it really quick, and we'll keep this thing going. All right, here we go. Ooh, that's better. Gotta wet the whistle and keep it going. So tomorrow, I guess technically today, if you are watching the live stream, it is technically today. We are 3 minutes into Thursday, but the Cubs will play their last game of this series against the St. Louis Cardinals in Busch Stadium in St. Louis, Missouri on Thursday, July 22nd at 6:15 Central Daylight Time. So it's an hour earlier, which is kind of nice, especially for those that have to get up and go to work on Friday. Usual suspect, if you're in the Chicago market, 670 The Score and Marquee Sports Network if you're listening and watching respectively. And then if you're in the Cardinals market, KMOX 1120 AM, 98.7 FM, WIJR AM 880, and Bally Sports Midwest if you are watching. And then this game will actually be out on MLB Network if you are out of market for either one of these teams. For the Cubs, they are trotting out right-handed pitcher Adbert Alzolay. He is 4-9 in the season. I don't think that's truly indicative of how he's pitched. The long balls killed them all year, but he's making good strides for a guy that hasn't even pitched 30 career games yet to this point, or at least I don't think he has yet. But 4.59 ERA for him and 83 Ks. And then on the other side is Kwang Hyun Kim. He's 5-5 on the season. He's actually been really hot lately. He's got a 2.87 ERA and 60 Ks. Not a huge strikeout guy, but he is effective and gets outs. Again, it's just Joe Maris, for those that are familiar with the show, one of my co-hosts and panelists here at Cubs on Tap, wrote a really good article today. It's just, hey, just beat the Cardinals. Like it's one of those things where like even in a lost season as a Cubs fan in transition year, whatever you want to call this season, it's just nice to see the Cubs beat up on the Cardinals because it's the biggest rivalry for them. Don't listen to the Sox fans saying it's a bigger rivalry. Don't listen to the Brewers fans even. I hate the Brewers just as much as I do the Cardinals, but the St. Louis Chicago rivalry is forever one of the best in sports. So if you can beat them, if you can beat them, it's beautiful, it's lovely, and I love it. And actually, Arcaldi 1908, I see your comment here, brother. Thank you for keeping in on this. Duffy being eligible to be back tomorrow is a big thing because that could dictate the lineup looking a little different. Tomorrow going to be Wisdom at 1 at first. Yep. Possibly. Could happen. Absolutely could happen. Chirino's catching. I think so. I think Willie needs a break. And then Duffy at third, shaking my head. You know what? That might not be the worst thing in the world. Chirinos actually hasn't hit that bad since he's been a Cub. Wisdom playing the first, I don't think is awful, especially if Rizzo just needs to blow. And I mean, Duffy was hitting 278 before he got hurt. I think a lot of people forget how good his contact bat was. And everybody's like, oh, well, his power sucks. Well, he doesn't need a hit for power. He just needs to get on base and let people drive him in. So who knows? Maybe something will happen good tomorrow. But again, I'm going to keep it really short and sweet. And then it's just going to be just win. Just get a split. Like, save the Cubs fans the agony. I know a couple Cardinals fans. I don't need to hear from them tomorrow about, oh, we beat you guys in the series. No, just get the split. That way, if they talk shit, I can be like, dude, it's 500. You know what I mean? Like, just keep it moving, keep it, keep it going, and do what you can. But again, a win tomorrow would just be nice. And again, that's kind of where I'm at. Take it day by day. Get a W tomorrow. Roll into the weekend against the Diamondbacks, and then we'll recollect ourselves after that Diamondback series. And Arcaldi, I see you here, man. It's dark times, and Dom Frederick is saying trade everyone. Dark times, lol. I don't know if he's saying trade everyone, and I've seen his tweets. I'm right up to par with you there. It's one of those things where you have to emotionally detach yourself from the player sometimes and say, okay, where does this team need to get to be contending again? Because I think if we looked back and said, oh, we're going to sell off Aramis and Derek Lee and all these guys that Cubs fans truly liked, but we're like, hey, we're going to be back in contention in 3 years, you say, okay, sell them off. We'll deal with the pain, get back there as quickly as possible. So I think that's where Dom is really heading with that idea. And yeah, it sucks. I mean, don't get me wrong. It doesn't make it fun by any means, but it would be splendid to know, like, hey, if we can get back to that contention window sooner than later, I think everybody will be happier at the end of the day. And it's that idea of having a sense of direction. And I think we'll really truly have that after the deadline. And then especially after this winter, once this team kind of says, hey, this is our direction, this is where we're going, this is what we're going to do in the winter. If we're going to spend a lot of money, spend a little money or spend no money. And then at least fans can kind of reset themselves and say, okay, this is our expectation, this is where we're going. We'll get there, and we'll see what we're doing. So for tomorrow's game, like I said, just get a W, just get a split at this point. Mentally, I think that's what all Cubs fans want and need. Because again, this was a winnable game. Realistically, if we're sitting here speaking, we should be talking about going for a series victory tomorrow. But instead, we're talking about going for a split. It is what it is. But I'm gonna go ahead and, I mean, unfortunately, nobody's really great against Kim in this lineup. I don't think Chris plays tomorrow because he's 2 for 4 against him. Baez is 3 for 5 against him, but nothing meaningful. I'm gonna just go head out on a limb, honestly, at this point. I fully expect Rafael Ortega to be back in the lineup tomorrow, so I'm just gonna ride with somebody wild and unique. Give me Rafael Ortega tomorrow. Bat him lead off again. Let's see what happens. He had a good game in the leadoff spot tonight. I think that warrants him getting another spot in the leadoff spot tomorrow. And yeah, the lineup probably looks a little different tomorrow. Travel day, 4th game of a series. You got 3 at home with the Diamondbacks over the weekend. I think a guy like Ortega could use that as an opportunity to essentially keep himself on the roster at this point and keep getting that MLB paycheck. And hopefully things are better after tomorrow's game. I know for sure I won't be on tomorrow's show. Oop, before we get out of here, I see your comment, sir. Art Caldy, 1908. Speed, contact, defense, on base, and batting average. That's what we need to spend on. Cheers. Absolutely agree with you, sir. It's that diversifying the lineup. You have a plethora of guys that are good at different things. You want that balance throughout a lineup, and I think that's what we've seen really since that 2017 to now is like there's too many of the same guys in the lineup, and that's where I think the whole retool idea comes into play. Is like, hey, look, we're not going to suck. We just need to flip some guys around and try and revamp this lineup to look a little different. And that's why I think guys like Nico Horner are so important. I think that's why guys like ultimately Anthony Rizzo is still very important to this team, even Willie Contreras. And then you can bring in a couple of those higher contact type guys into this lineup. I think that could do this lineup a lot of good and this team a lot of good really going forward. So I'm 100% there with you. And cheers to you. Thanks for sticking on all the way until almost 12:15 in the morning here in Chicago. It's been a late one, unfortunately. That ninth inning and 10th inning alone were an hour by themselves when the rest of the game wasn't really that long. But no, like I said, I really do appreciate everybody jumping in the comments tonight. I appreciate everybody jumping in the stream. If you're listening to this as a podcast, I appreciate you as well. Again, the solo ventures are a little different. It's just me trying to pretend to be a sports talk show host and just venting, and that's why the comments are great because then it can steer my thought process and things like that. But like I said, Ortega, he's my Fly the W player for tomorrow. Go a little off the board. I think he does get another start tomorrow. He was really good tonight, so I don't see why he doesn't get another start tomorrow. So, but before I get out of here, I do want to remind everybody Cubs on Tap is the official Cubs podcast of the On Tap Sports Network. You can go ahead and check out all of our great stuff over at www.ontapsportsnet.com and at ontapsportsnet on social media. You can check out the Cubs on Tap specific accounts, which are at Cubbies, that's Cubbies, on Tap. That's on both Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me at Loose on Tap on Twitter. You can follow all of our other great panelists and contributors at Cody on Tap, at Juice on Tap, at Joe Mares, at Marty Laval, at The Riot 326, and so many more that do great work over here for us at Cubs on Tap. Not only do we do great Cubs coverage over at On Tap Sportsnet, ladies and gentlemen, we do Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks. Blackhawks tonight, Seattle expansion. Well, yesterday, I guess, technically. Seattle expansion draft. John Quenville is good as gone. He's an AHLer. Not a big deal. Hawks didn't really lose anybody, but the NHL entry draft is this weekend, and it's going to be a very big weekend. So be sure to tune in for all of that great coverage. And yes, Cubs fans, I say it every show, but it's true. We all have at least one friend that is a White Sox fan. Our Sox on Tap guys do a great job, so you go ahead and bring them over to us here at On Tap Sportsnet as well. Once again, www.ontapsportsnet.com and at ontapsportsnet on social media. The On Tap Sports Network. Go ahead and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining. If you were in the live stream tonight, thank you so very much. If you were listening to this as a podcast, thank you as well. The Cubs unfortunately lose in extras 3-2 to the Cardinals. Yadier Molina, the absolute worst person that could have won this thing tonight, walks it off for the Cardinals. Heartbreaking loss. The Cubs should have won this game, but they have a chance to split tomorrow, so hopefully they will get said split. Thank you again to everybody that joined in the comments. Arcaldi 1908, I see your comment there. He says, thanks, bud. Great job. Thank you, sir, and good night to you as well. And good night to everybody listening. Hope you have a great day on Thursday, and we're all going to wish a Cubs win into existence with Alzolay on the mound because I am going to get out of here the only way we know how to here at Cubs on Tap. Fuck the Cardinals, and let's go Cubbies.